Kurt, NBA free agency has blown my mind. I mean, as soon as it happened, like at midnight, my mind was blown. And now I've been trying to just understand what happened. I've been going through the wreckage of the NBA landscape. First and foremost, we have to start with Kevin Durant requesting a trade the day after Kyrie Irving opted into his player option. What is your take on this?
Well, look, Kevin Durant was obviously put off by they didn't have a great season. They got swept out of the playoffs last year. They didn't look that good. He was also frustrated. He and Kyrie Irving, and he said he's tighter with Kyrie Irving now than he was before last season. And the Nets drew a line in the sand with the organization on Kyrie. Like, oh, you want to get traded? Go find a trade. You think you've got a market out there? And so ultimately he has no choice but to opt in. I mean, he could have played for the Lakers for $30 million less, but no. So like he's going to take the money. He opts in, but it makes Durant unhappy, and he's not happy with the direction of the organization, and he asks out. And it has, you're right, absolutely thrown a lot of stuff into just chaos right now. And it's settled a little bit. I mean, the expected stuff happened, like, max extensions for Zach LaVine and Zion and stuff we knew was going to happen happened. But there's stuff now starting to bottleneck up because everybody's kind of waiting to see what happens, and the Nets are in no rush, because they looked at what Minnesota overpaid for Rudy Gobert, and they said that if Rudy Gobert gets that, Corey,
wow,
he's giving up for Kevin Durant.
Yeah, let's before we get back to Kevin Durant, let's talk about that Rudy Gobert thing for a second. I mean, when I saw this haul, because the words that Sean Marks and the Brooklyn Nets, they're looking for a monumental haul, in quote, right? This Rudy Gobert trade was the definition of monumental. I mean, we're talking Patrick Beverley, Malik Beasley, Walker Kessler, Jared Vanderbilt, Leandro Bolmaro, and 4 first-round picks. All of that for one player. So you would have to like trade an entire team, maybe some of the training staff, maybe some of the weight room guys. I mean, you would have to trade like half the front office to get Kevin Durant. What's it going to take to get Kevin Durant on your team? And those guys are still like, there's more than half the teams in the NBA saying, hey, we'd be interested. What's it going to take to get him out? So, I mean, that level of cost might bankrupt their franchise. Yeah.
What has Danny Ainge got? What is his ability to like hypnotize other GMs into massive paydays to his team? He has pulled some huge trades where he's just gotten, you're like, how much? And this is one of them. Look, I think, by the way, Minnesota got better. Like, make no mistake, Minnesota is going to be good next year. This is an admission that Karl Anthony Towns is their star player and their best. Well, he's their best offensive player now. Anthony Edwards will be their best defensive player. But I mean, they've got these 2 offensive pillars. But Karl Anthony Towns isn't a defender. And so they went out and got the best defender on the market, or in the league maybe. I think they're going to be really good. I think they're potentially top 4 in the West next year. They got better, but I think where everybody paused is that the payment that, like you said, 4 first-round picks, 3 of them unprotected, 1 top 5 protected, plus this year's number 22 pick, plus a bunch of players, plus all this stuff, a pick swap, all of that. If you're the Milwaukee Bucks and you give that up to get Drew Holiday in because you're 1 piece away, I get that. Like, if you're the Clippers and you give that up to get Paul George because you're going to get Kawhi Leonard and they haven't won yet, but they've put themselves in position, I get that. This is still not a contender. This is still not. I don't believe so. And so that's a lot to give up to be good. And maybe that's enough. Maybe for a Minnesota franchise that has only one time in its history gotten out of the second round, being really good for 4 or 5 years is a huge step forward. Corey, it changes the market. And by the way, back to the original point, it changes the Kevin Durant market because that's now the baseline.
Yeah, that is, it's kind of like when you see in the NFL, or really any league, but especially in the NFL recently, this quarterback signed what? And then everyone else goes back and says, okay, wait, a month later, we're going to break that record. I think about the wide receiver market that just like the record was broken 3 times in a month. I just had to keep refreshing my phone and keep sitting down because I was floored. I was like, I cannot believe that they're getting NBA money as wide receivers in the NFL. And it's the same kind of thing we're seeing here. If Rudy Gobert, I know he's a defensive player of the year multi-time. I know he's, a defensive pillar. He was a part of one of the best teams in the NBA for a while with the Utah Jazz. And he's very good at what pick and roll, dunk the ball, block shots, affect the defense. I mean, he's very good at that. But for that cost, I just keep thinking about this as far as like investing. Right? If that's the cost, I can't help but think that you overpaid. And then I can't help but think that, well, now how does this affect? I mean, if you're going to overpay for Rudy Gobert, you're definitely going to overpay for an MVP and Kevin Durant. And then will you then be in a position to win now getting Kevin Durant? The whole point of getting Kevin Durant is that he's in his prime, 33-ish, right? And he's going to help you ball out today, get a championship today, right? But like if you sideline the whole franchise, you're going to have a repeat of the Nets, are you not? You're going to have another 2 or 3 years of satisfied superstars, no consistency, nothing's going to gel, and then you're going to end up having to swallow this huge bill. I don't understand the thought process here, but that Gobert trade to me was the pivotal moment that the rest of us are just going to have to reckon with when you think about Kevin Durant's value, and it's going to be astronomical.
It is, and I think your point is really valid, which is there's a lot of teams who would like to get in, and look, every 29 teams should be calling. Well, let's be honest, 28 teams. The Knicks don't need to bother. They won't send them to the Knicks. But 28 other, like everybody should be calling. But there's really only a few teams that, like you said, could give up. You can kind of construct. This is why Phoenix is kind of considered the front runner, right? Like if you're doing it, and you probably need a third team, but if you do a DeAndre Ayton sign and trade, and Bridges is gone, but you can still pair Chris Paul and all their depth with Kevin Durant, you're there now, right? Like, and Devin Booker, obviously, I didn't mention him. Like, obviously, you're in the mix, and you're going to have to find some front court help and stuff, but you're there. It's why Toronto keeps getting mentioned. It's a name I've heard around the league, only because, hey, you want a really great player? Here's All-NBA Pascal Siakam. We'll give you OG Anunoby, and you've still got Kevin Durant with Fred VanVleet and just Gary Trent Jr., like just a good team that can contend instantly. So,
oh no, because to me it kind of reminds me of the whole Kawhi Leonard Toronto team. It's like, but the difference is what we've seen with Kawhi is, we haven't seen him in LA win yet. But the thing about Kevin Durant, I think, is really interesting is I don't know if he's that franchise cornerstone that's going to immediately help you win a championship. We saw it in Oklahoma City. We saw it in Brooklyn. Like it's not the case. But in the Golden State Warriors, that system, he was perfect because your job is to be an assassin, period, end of story. And Kevin Durant's the baddest dude out there in that regard. Like that job description, Kevin Durant is numero uno, right? So to me, going to Toronto is going to be a repeat of the Nets or the Oklahoma City Thunder. Because like I said, just the cost is too much. I think in a best case scenario, which is probably unlikely, but Miami, because like what it's going to cost. But if Jimmy Butler is that guy, right? He is the embodiment of the Heat culture. Like the ownership, GM, coach, everyone knows what it means to be a part of that Heat DNA, right? All you do is just add in that Kevin Durant magic like you did in Golden State, and that's going to be NBA Finals caliber Kevin Durant again, right? That's where he excels. Like in Golden State, Kurt, like Steph was the guy, Draymond, Clay, like they're all, protecting that culture. Adding Kevin Durant or subtracting Kevin Durant doesn't change anything. They still won without him. They still, so my whole thing is Kevin Durant needs to find that place for him that allows him to just be kind of like a add instant, flavor now without disrupting the entire chemistry or culture. And I think Miami is the best place. I think Phoenix is still too young because Devin Booker is that guy, but I don't think he's had enough time to establish a flavor there yet.
That's why the Celtics come up and just talk, because a Jaylen Brown-based package suddenly puts them. You've still got Tatum, you've still got Robert Williams, and all that. It's an interesting idea. I've heard the Celtics just aren't that thrilled because, hey, you know what? They're really good now. They went to the finals. Do they need to blow? Hey, we made it to the finals and push it to 6 games, and we're young. Should we blow this up for Kevin Durant? I mean, would you, Corey? I don't think I'd do that.
I would not either, because I think, and they actually did the Celtics and free agency, right? I'm just like still swirling, Kurt, but I think they made probably the best move, right? Because they were able to, in the past, 2 years, kind of construct that roster. They got Derek White, which I thought was one of the best moves last season, and then in free agency this year, I think they got they were probably the team that made the biggest jump getting better without affecting that core. So to me, they're doing things the right way. They don't need Kevin Durant to come in and dramatically change everything. They were in that Bucks Drew Holiday scenario. They just needed one piece, and I think they got it.
Yeah, Malcolm Brogdon coming in, I think, gives them. There was points in the playoffs where you're like, okay, is Marcus Smart really our third best shot creator? And I love Marcus Smart, but Brogdon is an offensive upgrade over that. And by the way, quietly, they picked up Danilo Gallinari, like as a free agent. Oh, we got a 6'10" guy who's a knockdown shooter. Like and we can use him in certain matchups. Like I'm with you. I think Boston went from very good to like they and the Bucks probably are my favorites in the East. I'm not sure how I would parse between them right now. Like that is such a great offseason for them. And Durant, the market slowed down on him. I think it slowed down only because now they're getting into, hey, these are the serious offers. They've kind of intentionally, like we're in the public negotiation phase of this, right? Like negotiating through the media. Hey, we're not in a rush. We'll bring them back in the fall. They don't want to bring them back in the fall, but what they want to say is we're not going to be rushed. We're not having some artificial deadline. Like, right? Like, no, we're going to wait till we get a good offer.
And I think that's wise. The problem with the Nets, though, is they're dealing with so much drama. I think that's the only word I can think. It's just been theater. It's been Broadway, in Brooklyn for the past, since Kyrie and Kevin Durant got there. And do you want to talk about Kyrie, or should we move on? What do you think?
Well, Kyrie, I will say this. With Kyrie, he's going to end up a Laker. The only question is what that deal looks like. Is Westbrook going out? Does he go to a third team? Is Joe Harris part of it? Is Kendrick Nunn or the picks unprotected? They're working it out. You know how many teams are clamoring to get their hands on Kyrie Irving right now? You can tell where he's going. I would be shocked if he's not a Laker when the season starts.
And they just did this whole thing with Russell Westbrook. I wonder had they learned from their mistake. I do want to ask you about DeJounte Murray in Atlanta, though, because this is interesting. So Kevin Huerter departed, and I thought that was inevitable, because when you look at that team, it was like, okay, well, something's got to give here, right? We got to unlock some potential here. And it looked as though they got, Gallinari departed, Kevin Huerter, and they brought in DeJounte Murray. That was interesting. What did you think about that?
I love it. I mean, are you okay as a Spurs fan losing DeJounte Murray? Are you going to take it? Are you going to be okay?
I mean, I have to be okay. I'm out here. It's funny, though, because I'm wearing old school Spurs jerseys in New York. So I don't have a DeJounte Murray Spurs jersey. So I don't have to change my jerseys or anything. But I am very happy for him. And I think this is following a trend of Spurs in the past few years, right? Where it's like, Will Hardy is now coach, right? Taylor Jenkins is coach. Then you have the players like I said, Derek White getting paid, DeJounte Murray getting paid. So I'm happy for the guys that kind of graduated the Spurs system and then go out there and do well in their careers.
Okay, really quickly, though. You're walking around New York in old Spurs jerseys. Is there a Rodman in there?
No.
Okay, just had to ask. Look, I love this for the Suns in that for the Spurs, one more time, for the Hawks, in that it's kind of it's the guy they needed. It's almost a perfect fit as the other guard with Trae Young, because what did they lack? First off, you've got to get somebody who can defend. And DeJounte Murray had to carry a huge offensive load for the Spurs last year and still, I think, led the league, but he had 2 steals a game. He is long. He anticipates. He plays this really smart game. He is a fantastic defender. So now you've got that in the backcourt. And the other problem has always been, and we saw it in the playoffs, right? All right, we're going to double team. We might triple team Trae Young and dare anybody else, right? And when Trae Young sits, we fall apart. Well, not anymore. DeJounte Murray is shown he can carry a team. He can create. I think in a lot of ways, he really helps them take a step forward. I think it's a great fit for them.
Yeah, I think the Spurs here, in my opinion, won. I think when you look at the Hawks, I like soccer, that, Kurt, and I've been trying to kind of understanding this whole thought process of like Ronaldo. He requested a trade. He just signed a 2-year deal with Manchester United. After the first year, they're like, I'm not happy with what's going on. He requested a trade. They're thinking, no, you have to honor your commitment, whatever. We'll see how it falls out. But my whole thing is, this is interesting. We're seeing the Hawks have to make moves to please their young superstar. I understand when it's Ronaldo and, he just made like the Premier League all team, for that past season. He's 37 years old. He's one of the most decorated players ever. But this is the trend that's happening now where you have to do this for a guy who just signed his rookie max extension last year, right? You have to make moves because they were in the Eastern Conference Finals. Then this year were really bad. And what happened? What's that drop off? Something has to happen. You read the comments from Wrestler, right? And it's kind of like, we're going to make moves. We know something has to change. And then you see all those moves I mentioned, Herter and Dejounte Murray coming in. But my whole point is, I think that is what's so fascinating, that they're making movements because they feel like they have to acquiesce, the demands, both perceived or actual, from a early 20-something superstar. Right, who could leave in 3 years or could leave next year? Like that's the thing that's so crazy, is that people are going to force their way out. Like, we're seeing this all the time now. So that is, from my perspective, I understand why the Hawks had to do it to be a good partner, but we've seen the NBA superstars aren't always being good partners back. So I don't know if they made the necessary moves that actually make them better versus just movement just to make movement to please Trae Young. The Spurs, on the other hand, I think they won here because you think, okay, well, look. In the future, we're going to pay DeJounte Murray something like, these other guys are making these max contracts. He's an all-star. Darius Garland just signed a huge contract, right? Are the Spurs going to put $200 million into DeJounte Murray, given the past success of the team? The answer, most likely, no. They can't afford that in a small market. So I think that they were able to capitalize on his most recent success as a franchise and move forward, doing what they do best, is just through the draft, right? Kind of focus on the young talent they have.
Well, I'm with you. I think they sold high on DeJounte Murray. I like DeJounte Murray's fit in Atlanta, but I think the Spurs made the right move. And we're going to see more teams this year. Either, look, they're just not going to be that great. And the Spurs chose this year, not accidentally. And I think you're going to see other teams choose this year because Victor Wembanyama is up there, because Scoot is up there. Like, there's franchise players in this next draft, expected franchise players, elite guys. Teams know that. And if the lottery odds flatten that out a little bit and it makes the picks a little less valuable, but somebody's got to win. Somebody is going to win the draft lottery. And if you can make your odds a little bit better, I think that this is it's not what it was a few years ago where it was a race to the bottom certain years because, oh my gosh, Zion's coming up or whoever it was, right? Yeah. I don't think that way, but there's a little of that because this is whoever gets the top few picks in this draft, next year's draft, the 2023, are big winners.
And I think with the Spurs too, you're looking at, they tried to build around Keldon Johnson and DeJounte Murray, right? And Lonnie Walker. Lonnie Walker's gone. DeJounte's gone, right? And that whole experiment didn't work. They brought in LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan. Both of them are gone, right? So that whole kind of like post-Tim Duncan era, post-Kawhi era didn't work out in the Spurs' favor. And then now you have this next generation. They still have Keldon. But I thought what's really interesting is Josh Primo. He's like the youngest guy. He's like 18, 19 years old. And like you said, with this upcoming draft, it looks like they're trying to revamp this and play off of rookie deals, which is, once again, smart if you're a small market. But unfortunately, that means you have to sell an all-star guard. But I want to ask you about the other really big free agent signings, the one that we knew were going to happen. Zach LaVine. Oh, that one was kind of up in the air, but Zach LaVine re-signing with the Bulls on a max deal. Devin Booker re-signing with the Suns on a max deal. Karl-Anthony Towns re-signing. Which one stood out to you the most? Zion re-signing as well. That was a big deal given his injury history. Which one stood out to you the most?
I think Zion a little bit, honestly, just because that was the one where and it's the one where a lot of people have been like, especially people a little outside basketball. Like, wait, Zion's played 86 games over 3 years and you're giving him $191 million at least? Like,
great job. Great
work.
You're saying awesome.
But I think they're making the Joel Embiid bet. When he has played in those 86 games, he has been phenomenal, right? And you're betting that your staff and he can get him healthy, can get him in the shape he needs to be, can get everything you need. And if it comes together, suddenly him with Brandon Ingram, with, that's now CJ McCollum as kind of the leader that they really needed to kind of bring everybody on board and get them on the same page. They didn't have that kind of veteran leader in the locker room. That's a fun team now. That's a really good team. And so they're making a bet on Zion. Maybe it doesn't pan out. Maybe it does. But I think if you're the Pelicans, if you're in that middle of the small market, you have to make that bet. You're not the Lakers or the Heat where you're like, you know what? I'll just go get a free. You can't do that. This is the bet you have to make. And knock on wood for them. Look, I want it to work out for them, Corey, because I like watching Zion Williamson play. Man, I just want to see that guy back on the court.
You have to make that bet because it's not every day you get Zion. Like and those guys for the smaller markets, the only way you get a Zion is through the draft because it's not going to happen through free agency. So if you get one through the draft, you have to make the bet. Regardless of injury history, you just got to make the bet. It's like a comet. It doesn't come along very often, right? So one thing I think is interesting, plus they've actually been able to get better as a team in Zion's absence, which is neither here nor there. I think that's pretty interesting when it comes to like the commentary on Zion with this team, with or without him. You know, it's kind of like, it's very interesting that they actually got like a lot better with CJ McCollum without him. But with him, we'll see if they take that next step from that decent to good to maybe contenders, you know, like we'll see. But I think that it was the wisest thing that the Pelicans could do, hands down. Because the thing about this too is I always think about basketball kind of like show business because it is, you know, and at the end of the day, LeBron on a good team or a bad team will sell tickets. Like we're still talking about the Lakers, even though they weren't good last year because LeBron's there, right? And the fact of the matter is Zion, those guys where it doesn't matter if he's on the bench, they're still going to get TV time, and half the game will be him in a hoodie on the bench. You know, like just like towards the end of the Lakers games, they're still playing on national television, and it was just Anthony Davis and LeBron James wearing hoodies next to each other on the bench. That was half the broadcast. And when you have that kind of star power as a franchise, that your job is to sell tickets and get people excited about your team, you can't pass that up. Like there's like a handful of guys in the entire NBA who have that power. It's like John Morant, LeBron James, Zion Williamson, Luka Doncic. You know, like there's only a few.
Were there any guys you saw signing you really liked that move, or you kind of, maybe it was expected, but you made you smile?
Made me smile. You know, it's an interesting question. I think Devin Booker re-signing with the Suns to me was brilliant. I think that, like I said, he just needs more time to develop that DNA. I think Chris Paul, I see him as kind of like a consultant, like a high-paid consultant who comes in towards the end of his career. He's like going to be 40 when his career ends, with that contract ends with the Suns. So it's like he's like that high-paid consultant who comes in and teaches the young guys how to do the thing. But to me, that was a very smart move, especially when they didn't extend Deandre Ayton last year. To me, that was just like really smart because what you do there is now DeAndre Ayton could sign a max deal 4 years, but it's going to be $60 to $70 million cheaper on a discount than if he had signed the rookie max last year. So I'm like, okay, well, if that is the future, you're committing to Devin Booker, which is great. He's a great player and will only get better. You still have Chris Paul for a while. DeAndre Ayton can continue to reestablish his value over the next 4 years, play for that next contract. He's only at 23 right now. Yeah. So in 4 years, when he's a restricted free agent, so in 4 years, if he ends up signing for the Suns again, then he can make his max deal and get paid $250 million or more. Who knows what the market will be then, right? So, and he'll take over for Chris Paul, and then Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton will be a true 1-2 punch. So, like, in my mind, the Suns made the perfect move there, and the crown jewel was Devin Booker.
Yeah, I love it. And by the way, it'll be interesting to see what people pay Ayton. You know, Spurs could max him out. The Pacers can max him out, but he is genuinely the guy hung up in the Kevin Durant sweepstakes because him being signed and traded either to Brooklyn or somewhere else is a big part of any Phoenix package. And so while that drags out, he's stuck, right? Like he's just he's in a no man's land. And I feel for him because that's a tough spot to be in, but he's not the biggest fish in the pond right now. And so it's going, he can't do much except wait to see how this could play out for him. Unless, like I said, unless the Pacers wanted to jump in, and they've already got Miles Turner. So I just don't see a market for him out there.
Yeah, it's a really tough place to be. I think if you're a former number one overall draft pick, I think that's the one thing we always think about is like, you know, a lot of this is managing egos, and I think that's the one risk that the Suns took here is because you read the comments from him and his agent, from his agent, they did not appreciate being overlooked as the former number one overall draft pick. So in my mind, he's in the position that Andrew Wiggins is in, but like fast forward, you know where Andrew Wiggins found his niche in Golden State. DeAndre Ayton didn't have to go through the whole be the franchise player, while away in Minnesota, get on a max deal. Sorry, get on a max deal, but then have to like, what do we do with this guy on a max deal? And then eventually fall in the fortunate hands of Steve Kerr. Like he's already there. He's playing for Monty Williams, back-to-back Coach of the Year. Like he's playing with Devin Booker. He was playing with Chris Paul. Like Chris Paul has already made him so much better as a player. We saw him pre and post Chris Paul. So for me, like he is where Andrew Wiggins is right now. But it's hard to deal with that when you're 23 years old and a former number one overall draft pick. So, and you see all your classmates like Luka and Trey signing $200+ million deals. That's the hard part. So if he can stay the course, he will get paid. He's going to have a long career. But he's already there. He's already in that sweet spot. He found a niche on a great team.
Yeah, he did. And like I said, he's going to get paid on this tour. And you're right. He could establish himself for the next contract.
The other one I want to mention briefly here, the extensions, Nikola Jokic, we have to lead with him. The richest contract in NBA history for one of the most soft-spoken guys in the league, back-to-back MVP. He got paid 5 years, $264 million. What's your take on that deal?
If there's one guy who's worth it, right? Like if you're the Nuggets, you get the guy who's carrying you in the playoffs and on the court. He's also the guy selling your jerseys. And like you were mentioning this earlier with Zion, it's a business. At the end of the day, you're selling tickets, you're selling sponsorships, you're selling TV rights deals and all this. Jokic moves that needle, right? In Denver, he is the market. So like you pay him the max you can, and if the two-time MVP isn't the guy deserving of the richest contract in NBA history, who is? Like it was a good deal all around, and I think it ages well. By the way, some of these contracts, by the way, it's interesting. Some of these big contracts are going out, and people are like, well, 4 or 5 years. The TV rights deal is up, and new deal will kick in the 25-26 season, and it's expected to, I've heard lately, more than double, right? So if it, like, just the NFL got that huge. They're making a little over 2 now. If it gets to, say, 5, well, the salary cap starts to, it's not going to come in all at once. They're going to smooth it this time. But, like, the salary cap comes in and goes up. And so the back ends of some of these contracts, you're like, you're paying that guy how much? The teams are like, yeah, the salary cap's going to be going up. It's not going to be as painful on us as you think.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thanks for bringing that up. And I know before I let you go, Darius Garland, I know you're a big fan of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He signed a big deal. The same numbers as Ja Morant. 5 years, $183 million, worth up $231 million. He made his first All-Star team. What do you think about that one? Does that improve Cleveland's fortunes?
They kind of had to lock him up, and they're betting on him taking another step forward, I think, right? Like he took a big step last year. I would be surprised if Colin Sexton is back at the end of the day. Like I'm not sure where he'll be playing, but he'll get a chance somewhere. But Darius Garland and Evan Mobley are the future, and maybe with Jarrett Allen next to, is kind of the third guy on it. So you pay him. I look again, Cleveland. You're not going to get better. If this guy is part of your future, you can do it. And he's popular around the league. There's a lot of fans in other front offices if ultimately you need to make. So I like this one. I think if you're Cleveland, what do you think? I mean, if you're Cleveland, again, it's kind of the Zion thing. You got to do it, right?
Yeah, this is the way I look at like max deals and stuff is, to me, it could go extremely well or extremely poor. I'm talking like worst case scenario. What do you do? And it's interesting. No one wins in that scenario, especially if you're a small market, because the franchise is basically bankrupt, right? Because you spent all this on this one person. Then you can't find any trade partners. Where have we heard that story before? You can't find any trade partners. So then you have to end up buying him out. something like John Wall. You end up buying him out, and then he ends up paying, then he ends up getting on the Clippers for a taxpayer, a mid-level taxpayer exception, and then so that's what, $6.5 million a year. You go from making $40 million a year plus to $6.5 million a year, and then how do you reestablish your value? The answer is you can't. And that's where we see like Blake Griffin, another former number 1 overall draft pick who was bought out of a deal, who then is now signing veteran minimums around the league, and he's in his early 30s. So to me, these max deals, I understand they're a necessity, but at what cost to the franchise and to the player? Like that's that basically, if it doesn't work out well, that's the peak of your earning potential for life. Can you name another career where you're going to make, millions of dollars per year like this? So like that's basically it. So to me, it's I think some of these like issuing out max deals, I understand why you have to do it, but I just think they should exercise more caution. Why destroy someone's career?
Yeah, and you were taking a huge risk. So were there any, Corey, any under the radar deals where you said, oh, hey, that was a sneaky good move?
Yeah, I mean, I think Malcolm Brogdon was the biggest winner. I mean, I'm telling you, Celtics, that to me is like gold. They somehow managed to keep the DNA of the Celtics. They just went to the finals. Jason Tatum is still the guy. Everyone's still there, and they added him, who is one of those guys who's like, like a Tobias Harris. Like he's kind of that level of guy where he's a great number 3, and like a Drew Holiday. Like so, the fact that the Boston Celtics did that and retained everything is miraculous. So to me, that they won free agency so far. And then whatever happens with this Kevin Durant thing, that is also the biggest storyline for me. But that Malcolm Brogdon thing, as soon as I saw that, I'm telling you, Kurt, I was like, it's over. The Celtics, like they did it. They did it.
I love that move. I'll tell you the other team in the East, and let's make Gene, our producer, happy. The other team in the East that I thought had a really quietly good offseason, Philadelphia. Because when you look, they haven't, as of us talking, they have not yet announced the deal with James Harden, whatever the extension will be. There will be one. That'll get done. He's not going somewhere else.
I mean, that's exciting for a lot of Philadelphia fans, I'm sure.
But better than that, they went and got players around him, their stars now, that are better built for the deep playoff run. They got PJ Tucker. They paid a 37-year-old 3 years, $10 million a year, $3 million at 37. They went and got Daniel House, who is sneaky, quiet, good. Not a name maybe a lot of fans know. He is perfect for them. They traded for DeAnthony Melton in all these deals. These are the kind of guys who are going to be able to play minutes for them deep into the playoffs, who are two-way guys, so that they're not stuck. Remember last year they got deep in the playoffs, and you and I talked about it. They got to the Matisse Thybulle conundrum of, well, we need his defense, but they completely help. He mucks up our offense because everybody can help off of him, right? Like, what do we do with this? Now you've got two-way guys. You better not help off PJ Tucker in the corner. Melton can get to the rim. Suddenly they've got better depth to go around Harden and Embiid, and I think that they took a step forward. I think that I don't know that they're going to be much better in the regular season, but I think they're a much more dangerous playoff team now.
I'll believe it when I see it, Kurt. To me, this reeks of Houston 2.0.
Yeah.
And I watched that. I don't know how many stars I've seen cycle through that Rockets era, and it did not. That was one of those things last year. Talking about Kevin Durant, I am interested to see where this lies. Remember when we saw James Harden force himself out? Like, we thought that would be the biggest deal, ever. We thought this is going to change the fortune of someone's franchise. This is going to be it. This is going to be like, he's one of the most creative and innovative players ever to play. This is like huge. And what happened? It ended up not being a very big deal, which is shocking. Like, it's shocking for a player of that caliber to go to that team and nothing really happens. And that's kind of my fear with the extension, and also with Kevin Durant. Like, is it as big of a deal as we're making it seem, or is it going to be like James Harden last year? We shall see.